Welcome to the Poor Man's Retro Game Room, and welcome to my top 5 favorite Sega Genesis games to play over Halloween. Over the Halloween season, Spooktober, as some people call it. What I'd really love to hear is from you. I'd love to hear what is your favorite Sega Genesis game to play over the Halloween season. Give me your top 5 if you'd like. Let's have a good discussion in the comments section. But anyway, without further ado, we're going to get to my personal top 5 favorite Sega Genesis games to play over Halloween. Let's get to it.
Rise from your grave.
In 1988, the world was introduced to Altered Beast. One of the cool things that I learned about this game is that the developer, and I'm going to try not to massacre his name, Makoto Uchida, actually took inspiration from The Howling for this game. He also took inspiration from the music video Thriller by Michael Jackson. But, you know, this game is the OG. It is the original pack-in game that came with the Sega Genesis. And, you know, I don't think that even I appreciated it enough back in the day. It's got big sprites, great music, couch co-op play available on your Sega Genesis. And, yeah, it's a very short game, but, man, it's a lot of fun. And what other game would you like to play on Halloween? I mean, you can turn into a, well, you know, steroid-induced werewolf and just beat the crap out of a bunch of zombies and all kinds of different monsters. So this game fits perfectly with the Halloween season. It's an awesome game. I think that it's starting to get the love that it deserves now. It was a good choice for the pack-in game because Sonic the Hedgehog at that time wasn't even made yet. They were working on it, but it was a good pack-in game to show that the Sega Genesis can do arcade ports and do them very, very well. So that is my first pick, Altered Beast. Released for the Genesis in November of 1993 was Zombies Ate My Neighbors. Man, what a fun game this is. And it's a great game to play couch co-op. Man, grab your squirt gun. There's several different weapons you could pick up. And go around and squirt zombies and take them out and rescue cheerleaders, guys barbecuing, little babies. You're rescuing the whole neighborhood. And of course, once you meet the criteria, the exit opens and you go to the next level and you start over again. And the next level is going to be different. There's some really awesome boss fights, just a lot of fun to have in this game. And like I said, a great game to play couch co-op. And, it just has that 50s zombie movie vibe, 50s and 60s, you know. The B movies back in the day, the cheesy zombie movies, and it just has that vibe, and it's awesome, man. The character animation, everything is very, very cool in this game. The zombies are awesome. Pickups, all your weapons and all that stuff, very cool. So yeah, Zombies Ate My Neighbors, and you know what? It's a great game on the Super NES as well. There's a few differences between versions, but I prefer the Sega Genesis version myself, but it's a great game on both systems. So Zombies Ate My Neighbors at number 4. Released in North America in July of 1992 for the Sega Genesis was Splatterhouse 2. And what an awesome game this is, man. The downside is, of course, it's a one-player game. No couch co-op, but man, this game is awesome. The parallax scrolling, the graphics, the music, everything in this game is cool. And I would give this the nod over Splatterhouse 3, and the reason is, probably everybody else has the same reason, no time limit in Splatterhouse 2, and that time mechanic in Splatterhouse 3 can get, it can get pretty frustrating, especially later in later levels. But man, Splatterhouse 2, and I know it's expensive, so there are other ways of playing it, and I recommend playing it any way you can. What a great game. You don the Jason mask, even though your name is Rick. We all know what that mask means. And what an awesome game, what an awesome time. And just everything comes together on this game, and it's just a fantastic game. I highly, highly recommend Splatterhouse 2 if you can find it. And so, yes, sitting at number 3, Splatterhouse 2. Ghouls and Ghosts was released for the Sega Genesis in 1989. The cool thing about this is it was programmed by Yuji Naka. He completely reprogrammed it, and he was the head of the Sonic team. So the same team that that brought you Sonic worked on Ghouls and Ghosts. And you can tell, man, this game is an amazing port. It is awesome, and it was one of those early games that really put the Sega Genesis on the map. And if you played this, I played this back in the day, and I'm just like, man, you know what? You lose a little bit of memory when you're when you haven't played the arcade game for a while, And the first time you played on the Sega Genesis, you're like, man, it's almost identical to the arcade. Now, of course, it did. It lost some details. Some of the graphics, suffered a little bit, but it is a fantastic port, and it was a great way to play Ghouls and Ghosts at home back in the day. And when it came out for the Sega Genesis, at that point, it was probably the best port of the game for sure. I can't tell you a whole lot about this game that you don't already know. What a blast. And where else would you be running around in a cemetery in your chonies throwing axes at monsters? I mean, seriously, this game's a blast. It's a lot of fun. This is one of the most accessible ports of this game, as far as it's not as difficult as Super Ghouls and Ghosts, of course, on the Super NES. It's not easy, I wouldn't say, but I really do like the difficulty of this game, because it's right there where it challenges you, but it's not going to make you throw your controller against the wall, like I feel like doing when I play Super Ghouls and Ghosts. An awesome game. Playing it on the Sega Genesis is a great way to play it, and so if this game's number 2, man, look out for number 1, right? As a Sega Genesis owner, I always wanted a Castlevania game. Man, finally, in 1994, Konami releases Castlevania Bloodlines for the Sega Genesis, and all the Sega Genesis owners that were still owned their Sega Genesis got treated to an awesome game. It is, in my opinion, the best 16-bit Castlevania game, and I know I'm going to get some pushback on that. It is my favorite Sega Genesis game of all time. This game is awesome. Tons of mini bosses to fight, tons of bosses, huge bosses. The level design is awesome. The setting is awesome. being able to pick from 2 different characters to take through the game with different abilities and different weapons, and can get to different areas in different ways. Castlevania Bloodlines is an awesome game with tons of replayability. It can get tough. It's a pretty hard game, but it's not unbeatable. It really isn't. And you give me the choice of the 2, Castlevania games on the Super NES. I'm taking Bloodlines every day of the week. This is an awesome game, and Konami really had a good handle on the Sega Genesis hardware in 1994 when they released this game. So the game, in my opinion, can kind of push the hardware. It's awesome, man. Tons of color. The environment, like I said, is just fantastic. The soundtrack is great as well. And there was blood and gore in this game back in the day when that was not a common thing. Of course, Sega Genesis owners were, probably starting to get used to that by then. Whereas our Super Nintendo counterparts were probably going, wow. But anyway, the best game to play on the Sega Genesis over the Halloween season is Castlevania Bloodlines. Well, there you go. That was my top 5 favorite Sega Genesis games to play over the Halloween season. I'd still really love to hear from you in the comments. Love to hear what your top 5 favorite games to play over the Spooktober season, or even just throw down your favorite game that you like to play, your favorite Sega Genesis game, or any game really, that you like to play over Halloween. Had a lot of fun making this. Thanks for sticking around to the end of the video, and I hope you have a great and safe Halloween.